all well, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at our other videos on the channel. However, this video is not specifically about foreclosure. More or less it's about other stuff that goes on within a foreclosure or around a foreclosure. You know, and some people I've found working as a paralegal, they get into these situations. And these situations either precede a foreclosure or happen during a foreclosure. But the bottom line is, you know, if your inner house, as it were, isn't in order, your physical house obviously won't be at some point, which is probably why you're here watching this video and reviewing the other videos on the channel. So, one major thing I see, and typically happens a lot, is divorce. That occurs for some people either prior to foreclosure or during the foreclosure. So let's just break it down and get down to brass tacks on divorce. Number one, it's costly. Now, it's especially if you have assets, it's really costly. Divorce attorneys, typically what they'll do is they'll take a look at the marital estate and they'll say, okay, I'm going to divide it in half, and now that I've got that value, I'm going to bill X amount of hours to acquire as much of that as possible. And the sad part about divorce is, contrary to popular belief, it is usually avoidable. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, it's true, marriage doesn't come with a manual. You don't sit down, have class or instruction. I mean, some people are smart and they do get pre-marriage counseling, which is excellent, and it kind of sets your expectations in order so you kind of know what to expect from being married and how to deal with situations. But most people don't get that. So if you're in a divorce and you're also in a foreclosure, the first thing you absolutely need to realize, now with the exception of physical abuse or some severe extreme addiction or something like that, is divorce is usually avoidable. Obviously, if you're in an abusive situation, you should get out, you should file for divorce, but unfortunately that is the vast minority of most situations. Now, people getting into an argument, I'm sorry, I gotta break it to you, that's not abusive. Disagreeing on stuff isn't abusive. What your friends and your family think, you know, is abusive, and what is, well, let's just be honest. There's always his side, her side, and the truth. There's three sides to every story. So if you get divorced, you know, you're usually heading down a path that is extraordinarily avoidable. Now, the statistic usually goes, half of all marriages fail, but believe it or not, only 20 to 25% of first marriages actually end in divorce. So, especially if this is your first time on the go-around, stick with it. Most people that do are happier in 5 years. And trust me, there are bad ramifications for the purposes of foreclosure. Like, for example, it's bad for your kids. I mean, that is, unless you're in an abusive situation, divorce is bad for your kids. Don't do it. It's really bad. Not only does it hurt you in the long run, but it hurts them. And, of course, during a foreclosure situation, you really don't want to be paying for, you know, 2 homes instead of 1. You know, 2 kids' bedrooms instead of 1, you know, 2 commutes instead of 1. Now, the sad aspect of divorce is, you know, ever since the onset of no-fault divorce, a lot of people would just say, I'm not happy. You know, and they'll just say that. But the sad truth here, and the promising truth by the same token, is that happiness comes within. So, like it or not, if you get divorced, and you decide to go down this road that is going to affect your foreclosure in a very bad way and preclude lots of remediation you could do, it's gonna preclude a lot of options. So the sad part is, if you do this, wherever you go, the next relationship you're in, you take you with you wherever you go, and you will be dealing with whatever unresolved problem you have in the next relationship, which will probably end up the same way, for the simple reason that you just haven't dealt with it. I strongly recommend SaveTheMarriage.com. You know, go to that website, look up, it's architect Lee Bauckham. He does excellent work. I recommend the $60 for the Save the Marriage ebook. It is the best investment you will ever make, even if you end up ultimately getting divorced. because it really helps you kind of develop, your particular, yourself, and understand how relationships work to, if you can't save your marriage, at least not repeat the mistakes later. So that's one aspect, that's one type of situation we see in foreclosures, and that is the advice, that really needs to be given to people like that. The second group of people we have, they've been in some kind of an accident or they're suffering from illness. Now these tips should go without saying, and really they're going to help you even if you haven't been in an accident or you aren't suffering from an illness. But number one, eat better. I mean, garbage in equals garbage out, and that's going to affect everything. It's going to affect your relationships. If you're married, it's going to affect your marriage, and it's also going to affect your job. Vitamins, I highly recommend, especially if you happen to live north of the equator in the northern hemisphere, somewhere, eat some D vitamins, okay? Just get yourself some D vitamins. I mean, it's sunlight in a pill form. How could you go wrong? That's just one of those, a lot of people work inside, they don't get out. Especially if you live in like northern climates, you need more sunlight and you're just not going to get enough. So take some D vitamins. It can't hurt you, it can only help you. If you haven't, quit smoking. Use electronic cigarettes, use patches. I don't care what it takes. Quit smoking. If you're in a foreclosure, you probably can't afford to be a smoker. Or, if you are a smoker, you should really think about cutting back. It's gonna put money in your pocket. It's gonna help you think more clearly. And as a former smoker, I can tell you for a fact that you'll start out and you'll say, how could I live, without these things? And life is great. Life is a lot better. You'll be breathing better. You'll be thinking more clearly. So if you are a smoker, quit. Just think about it. The place you live in is more important than smoking. Finally, fresh air and sunlight. I can't stress this enough. These are really good ideas, and they're only going to help your health improve. Now, the third thing we deal with in foreclosures and people in that situation is they've either had a job loss or a significant cut in their earnings or something like that has happened. This is a time, even if you aren't in foreclosure, you should be thinking about this anyway. Get yourself some skills and knowledge. That doesn't necessarily mean get a degree. Learn how to do something that somebody else absolutely needs. And it doesn't mean borrowing money. YouTube, for example. Christ, you're here. You're watching this video. You should already see and know and realize that there's so much knowledge out there at the tips of your fingers. So go out and get it. It can only help you earn money in the long run. Especially if you're looking for knowledge and skills to earn money, or you're looking for a different way to earn money. Speaking of that, quit your job and find your work. Now, I don't mean just go and quit your job tomorrow. I mean really think about what it is you want to be doing that you're excited about, that you can actually set in motion. This is something that, not only is it going to help you earn more money, it's going to make you a happier person. And the reason you're going to become happier is because you're going to become self-actualized. You're eventually going to reach this point in your life where you're not even going to be worried about foreclosures. Now, again, as I mentioned in the introduction to this channel's video, I say this video is about getting you out of your situation, making sure this type of thing never happens again. That's what I want you to take from this channel. I want you to take this knowledge and get on a course where you're not even worried about having to be in a foreclosure. You're not even worried about the roof over your head. And that's really, what I'm hoping you get out of this. So that's just all part and parcel of it. Stop borrowing. If you live on credit cards, stop doing it. A lot of people say, well, I need my credit card. I can't live without credit, and this, that, and the other thing. Just sit down here for a minute and think about how much interest you're paying. That never goes away. There's a reason they give credit cards to people who can't afford them. And it's because they're always going to be making the minimum payment, and they're always going to be, raking them over the coals. Now, I'm going to say this isn't legal advice. This is something you should think about doing, whether or not you've done it. But realistically, especially if you're in Connecticut, you theoretically could just decide, you could make the financial decision to say, I'm not going to pay these people anymore. The hell with them. And honestly, based on the way the banking system is, and based on the way things are, and based on the fact that so many people pay many times more than the actual principal they've borrowed, it reaches a point where, you know what, maybe it's time to say, I'm not going to pay these stupid cards anymore. And maybe they'll take you to court, and maybe they'll get a judgment in small claims or in a regular civil action. Maybe, just theoretically, your payment for the rest of your natural existence on that judgment could be $25 or $35 a week. Now, sometimes you reach a point where maybe that's the way to go, or maybe the other way to go is bankruptcy. But the bottom line is you have to stop the bleeding. Stop the borrowing. Don't borrow money. Just stop doing it. You can't afford the interest. Forget what else you have going on. You cannot afford to live on credit cards. It costs too much, okay? Now, by that token, evaluate what it is you can afford. You have to sit down. You have to be real about this. You can't just be like, I really want this house, or I want this, I want that. Sit down and actually map out what you have coming in, because if you don't do that step, not only can you not, stop the bleeding from a job loss or earnings loss, you can't even realistically sit down and decide what kind of offer am I going to make the bank to clean up this foreclosure mess. And finally, set yourself some professional goals, put it on a to-do list, and make sure you do something every single day. I don't care how big or small it is. Do something every single day to get yourself to where you want to be professionally, to where you are earning enough, or you're not spending as much, or you're doing something to clean up this mess that you happen to be in. I know a lot of people don't like to-do lists, but you know what? They'll go at it and they'll look at it like, wow, it's too large. And they don't like New Year's resolutions either, but look at it this way. Are you going to be happy just with things the way they are? Or do you want to turn this around? Do you want something to change? And that's really what, this channel is all about. And I hope these tips help. In going through the materials and starting to upload these videos, it just seemed obvious that these 3 topics needed to be covered. And, I probably might post another video like this up just to kind of cover all the different, aspects of, especially of divorce, which is very avoidable for the vast majority of people. So I hope this has helped. Questions, comments, headlinecopy@gmail.com. You can reach me there. And best of luck, and hope you do well.